Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey there, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we've got the damn I'm pretty guy himself, Mr. Jim Kellner. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Hey, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. Well, I tell you what, you were an inspiration to me to start doing podcasts because you invited me on yours, and just so you guys know, Jim's podcast is also on Blog Talk Radio, and it's the Exploring Awesome, and you can catch that. Is it every Wednesday, Jim, at 11?
Mostly
or does
every
it kind
Wednesday.
of change?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
yeah,
every Wednesday
and you
at
can
11 when I do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the great thing is you've got a great library of archived podcasts that people can listen to.
I do. In fact, you can go back and listen to Andy's episode from 2 or 3 months back.
Yeah. Thanks for the plug. Yeah, that was a fun episode.
It was, and I gotta say, like we were talking about earlier, I find it so cool. When I thought about that, the fact that you had said, well, you kind of inspired me to go forward with this, and because we talked about how easy Blog Talk was, and it's maybe not the best, but it's definitely easy. And then I was thinking, so I get the benefit now from inspiring you, and then how many people are you going to inspire? So, man, it's really important that you get out there and you make a difference, everybody.
Oh, it really is. That's one thought that I had the other day where you go through those moments where you're ready to give up on something, and someone randomly had sent me a message that something I had put out there hit home with them, and I had that thought of, you just never know who you're inspiring or moving or keeping going. So you just got to keep doing what you're meant to do.
Andy, I got to tell you, it's so funny because if everybody who's on social media, I hate to say it, but I do gauge, how much people respond to a message by how many likes I get or how many comments I get and things like that, and if the message is
right.
really good, and which is really disappointing for my YouTube channel because I got nobody. I get like three views, but I get 1,000 on Facebook and 3 on YouTube. But it is interesting because that same thing happens to me, Andy. Like every once in a while, somebody will email me or want to do want to sign up for hypnotherapy or something, and I swear I've never seen them like a comment. I've never seen them like a post or comment on a post. But they're watching and they say, you really inspired me with what, that thing or whatever. It's crazy.
Right. And all the likes aside, that's the motivating part. That's why we do what we do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Jim, why don't you share just a little bit of your background and what you do with the audience who might not have had a chance to click on the links and learn a little bit about you yet?
Thank you, Andy. I'd love to. Let me just finish up that thought too.
Sure.
So here's the thing, people out there, if you're out there and you are kind of one of those lurkers, that's fine, I get it. But, if you just every once in a while, like a post or comment or send a message or something, because I got to tell you, because I work with entrepreneurs, that's one of my specialties with the hypnotherapy and my coaching and talks and everything. And what I hear a lot of times, just like what Andy was just saying, what I've felt is sometimes you kind of feel like, should I just give up? I'm not making an impact. It's not like you don't get paid for every Facebook post, unfortunately. So there's really no.
Right.
So a lot of times we're not getting that feedback, and that feedback, that's sort of like your payment. Really, that's the way I look at it. If something inspired you, comment on it, like it, share it, that kind of thing, because that tells us, okay, people are resonating with this message. I need to keep going. And if nobody is, it's sort of like a newspaper. If they're not making any sales of subscriptions, then they go out of business because nobody cares, and that's kind of. So I'll get off my soapbox now. So about me, I've been interested in hypnosis for ever since I was a kid. I don't even remember the first time that I was excited about it, but I do remember I took a self-hypnosis class when I was 21, and then I didn't get certified until 20 years later, and then I finally started practicing about 10 years after that. So I've let fear get in my way a lot, and that's sort of one of the things that I really, really try to help people with breaking through that fear, because I think about, man, if I would have just started doing this back when I was, 21, 22, what kind of difference could I have made?
Sure. Isn't that the case where, I thought that was speaking and stuff where you think, if I would have only started here, if I would have only, been at this place a little while ago, but in a lot of ways, you might not have been ready to empower everybody if you hadn't gone through whatever you've experienced in life yet.
That's a really great point. And I'll tell you the other thing too, is that I think about, both of us do stand up, and for a lot of people that is seems like the hardest, most impossible thing. And I'm sure you have this too. People will come up after a show and go, "Oh, I've always wanted to try that." And I'm always like, just go do it. Because once you do it a couple times, you go, it wasn't that big a deal, but it was before you do it. So the point of that is, if I would have started doing, I had some problems with drinking and stuff when I was younger, and it was kind of out of control for a couple of years, and then I hardly ever drink now. But I think about that. If I would have gotten started, back in doing stand up or something back when I was, say, 19, 20, 21, 22, I might have had a very disastrous life.
Yeah. It's a different. You're in bars all the time. That lifestyle's in front of you, so you've got to be ready to control it if you're going to do that.
Yeah, and like you said,
I am.
It's much easier to I think to relate to people as you get older and you understand some of the struggles and things like that.
Well, Jim, one of the things I'm putting everybody on the spot about is how they've been awkward and what they've gotten over. And you've touched on that a little bit just with, having that fear and waiting a little while. And I tell you, one of the things that I did not know about you until we got to know each other a little bit and I followed you more on social media, you have your hashtag Damn I'm Pretty. And when you see that, you think, as an outsider, I'm a big proponent of knowing people's stories. And when you don't know Jim's story, you could think, oh, this guy's stuck on himself. He's on stage. He throws this out there all the time. He posts all these selfies. But that really is a sign of you overcoming something that was very awkward for you and that you had to struggle with, wasn't it?
Oh, I got to tell you, it's funny. I was just at a hypnotist conference and this last month. And one of the people there, she came up to me and we were talking, and she made the comment. People like to say it when they see me, "Damn, I'm pretty," because that's my thing. And I go, "Oh yeah," or something. And she goes, I don't think you're as confident as you seem like you are." And I'm like, "You're right, I'm not." But I'm way more confident than I used to be. And so what I've done is, and I find for a lot of people, when you're changing a behavior or a mindset, is there's an overcorrection. And so you start on one side. It's sort of like when you hit a bump on the road, you sort of overcorrect, and then you come back to it.
Sure.
And so I'll tell you, Andy, I had such low self-esteem from the time I can remember. I was also very introverted and shy. I was a kid that played with my trucks and stuff in the corner, and I liked it. I didn't necessarily dislike it. As I got older, though, I always envied those guys that would just burst into a room and like, "Hey, how's everybody?" I had a friend, Tim, in high school. He was like this big guy, and he was just boisterous, and he'd tell jokes all the time. And I was like, "Oh man, I want to be like that guy." And I never was. I was so unbelievably shy. In fact, one of the reasons that I had a problem with drinking was I could only really talk to girls if I was drinking. So I was 23, 24 before I ever asked a girl out when I wasn't drinking. I had a few drinks or something because I was just so, painfully shy. And then I decided I'm not going to be shy anymore. And so I threw myself into taking acting classes, and that's what really helped a lot. And then of course doing stand up was when I really, really was able to burst through. And then I used hypnosis as I started doing that. And go ahead.
Well, that's really powerful. How you said you decided not to be shy anymore. You just took control.
It wasn't. I got tired of it. I got tired of being just so afraid of everything. I wanted to be a performer. Ever since whenever. I did my first little pageant thing when I was in kindergarten, and I loved it. But I was so afraid, like in high school and stuff, to do it because people will think I'm weird, they'll think I'm dumb, and most of all, I thought, well, I'll probably suck at it. Well, of course I would suck at it because I had never done it before. And
right. Well, and isn't that the truth? How much we gauge our talent or our skill level based on our first attempt, especially at a young age.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so crazy. And you know, the thing that I always tell people now is failure is only feedback. And that's, you know, it's so crazy because we know this. You know, instinctively we know. We watch a child try to walk, and it takes them thousands of times trying, but they don't give up.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good example.
So, and I always tell people too, like people, one of the things that when people ask me about doing stand-up, they're always like, well, I just got to make sure I got to work on my jokes and make sure they're really funny, and I got to test it. I'm like, no, don't do that. Write a couple of jokes, go up there and fail, because you know what? You're going to fail. I've seen thousands of people, well, at least hundreds of people try an open mic for the first time. I've only seen one or two that were actually good the first time. You're probably going to suck. But that's okay, because it's a learning experience. And the longer you put it off, the longer it's going to take for you to get that learning process.
Right, and that's true with so many things in life. And I think whenever people have asked me about doing stand-up, or like you mentioned, they come up after the show and say it's something they want to do, I always tell people, don't do it. Don't do it once. Sign up to do it 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
because
you have to. Yeah.
You know, that first time, that's just like, you know, when a baby tastes, you know, peas for the first time, they're going to spit them out. Right. You got to like shove them in there a few times and have them get over it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I don't know about you, but you know, I've gotten. Actually, I don't even really do stand-up per se anymore. I mean, I do a little bit in the beginning of my hypnosis show, but that experience, also of being an actor, has helped me innumerably. I mean, it helped me to get over shyness. It helps me be more comfortable on stage. I mean, it helps. It gave me the confidence to talk to people. There's so many things you get out of it. So even if you don't want to be a professional stand-up or something, or a performer, I mean, you'll get so much out of it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because I can say the same thing about when I originally started doing stand-up. It was a really good friend of mine had been telling me, you know, oh, you're funny, you should do stand-up. And I'm like, I'm not on stage funny. I'm like break room funny, you know. Like, yeah. I don't know that I can do that, but I tried it, and I originally tried it thinking I'm, you know, working on a speaking career, and I need to be comfortable in different ways on stage other than just sales presentations and trainings. And and it just was something that I fell in love with, and it was very therapeutic for me to go on and just, you know, share my most intimate issues with a bunch of strangers. It's the greatest group therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So one fun fact about you is that you've given a TED Talk at TEDx Grand Canyon.
Yes, I have. Woohoo!
How was that experience as a speaker from your side? You know, how was that journey, and how did that come together?
I got to tell you, Andy, that was probably my most favorite moment in my life. It's at least in the top 3. It's so funny too, because when I first, it was in the back of my mind. I think every speaker, you know, even non-speakers, but at least speakers, it's always in the back of their mind, like someday I want to do a TEDx or a TED Talk or something. And but it seems like so. I mean, I never even looked at. People ask me, well, how'd you get the TED Talk? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they asked me to do it. That's how I did it. Now there's a process. You can go and apply. But I got lucky, and and part of the reason I got lucky is because of my fearless marketing. Is I'm just out there, you know. I put Damn I'm Pretty. I put out videos. I put out, you know, lots of social media and stuff. And you don't always see the results of the things you're doing, but then people notice you, and that's what happened. And so it's so funny because the first email I got from the coordinator, it was from a Gmail address, and I thought it was BS. I was like, right. What's this going to cost me, you know? And so I emailed her back, and I said, yeah, can you know, just let me. I almost didn't even reply because I get so much BS like this, and I'm sure glad I did. And I replied, and I basically said, you know, what's the process? What's this going to cost me? That kind of thing. And she wrote back, and she just hadn't gotten her TEDx email address yet. So then she eventually did get a TEDx email address, and so it was just amazing. You know, it was kind of funny. It was first like, yeah, we want you, and then it was like, well, you have to jump through a couple of hoops now. And one of them, I'll tell you, this was they made me do this thing, and I hate these kind of things. they say, make a short video about what kind of apple you would be and why. And I almost just said screw it, because I'm like, this is silly. And
right.
And I'm very resistant to doing silly things. And but luckily I went ahead and I did it. And I think sometimes for those kind of things, it's just to see how cooperative a person is, maybe. So
maybe.
I don't know if they gained any psychological perspective. But anyway, so I ended up getting it. We talked about it, and one of the crazy things about this is, and I hope if you're out there, please watch this. JimKellner.link/TEDx. It's so crazy that I still get clients that I'm working with, like doing a consult, and they'll say, like, I feel much better about this if there was just some research to back it up. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much research to back up hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
But so the process, so we just you have you meet with a speech I can't remember what they call them, like speech, not writer, but kind of coach, speech coach, and so give you some feedback and stuff. So I wrote it and rewrote it, and even though I'm on stage all the time, it's like when it got time to do it, I was terribly nervous, and plus they changed a bunch of stuff on me. Like the day before, I thought I was going to have 20 volunteers. They gave me 6, and or room for. They gave me room for. I thought I was going to have room for 20 volunteers.
Right.
So one of the things that I would say, if you're putting on a big production like this or something, is make sure that you ask your coordinator if you can, or if they can, talk with whoever is doing the actual technical stuff and ask them what's possible, because my coordinator was like, oh yeah, we can do that.
That's a good point.
We can do that. and
and
then you find out, oh no. And then I did it, and it's been amazing, and it's one of those things where people go, oh my God, you've done a TEDx talk, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge feather in your cap, and personally, to go through something like that just takes you to the next level.
Right. Yeah.
Even everything that you do, you learn new lessons, and we're already at a point where you were experienced enough and reaching enough people that it was worth doing a TED Talk. But then once you actually give the TED Talk, that process, even just little things like making sure they really have room for enough chairs that they thought they had, so you're always learning something.
Oh, totally. And it's funny because I've watched these other TED Talks, and I'd seen the size of the stage, and then when I got there, they actually had a big stage, but they only wanted to use part of it for some reason. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
So Jim, what do you have coming up? I know you do a few different types of shows and talks around the area, and do you have anything that you want to plug or let listeners know about?
I got to tell you, so I perform pretty regularly at Laughs. I do at Laughs. I do my comedy hypnosis show. I also do murder mystery events. I don't have anything on the books right now because I just haven't scheduled anything. But I'm going to be. I'm going to be in Arizona and California quite a bit over the next several months. Thank goodness, because I don't like to be cold. So
good timing.
And I wish I could say go to my calendar online, but I don't update it like I should. So
it'll be a good reminder.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, I'm actually going to be in Phoenix. I'm going to be at the Comedy Off Main sometime in October.
All right. Well, just so everybody knows, you can watch Jim's TED Talk. The link is in the description on this episode, and follow him on Facebook at Mental Magic Hypnosis, or Twitter at Jim Kellner, or Instagram at Kellner Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And your website, I have jimkellner.com or jimkellnerhypnotist.com.
Yes, all roads lead to the one. They all forward.
Yeah.
Got about a half dozen different ones.
And if you're following Jim, like and share his posts and his videos, because that's your payment to him. Like you said, a lot of times that's that feedback that we just crave and desire when we're doing work that reaches out to people.
It really is. And you know what? And please, people, do reviews, not just for me, but for business. And I'm trying to get better about this because, it's so tough. Even if you love a place or a person, it's so hard to take the time and do a review. I don't know why it is, but I tell you, it's those kind of things help too, because all the time I have, because I've gotten, part of that is confidence too, in asking for reviews. And so, if you're out there, please do that. Please send out, if you feel pretty comfortable about what you just did, then send out an email and ask for a review. But the thing is, I get people all the time that they'll say like, "Well, I found you on Google and you had the most reviews, so I knew you must be good." I'm like, yes.
Well, and that is one thing. Like a lot of people, hypnotherapy, like you mentioned, some people will say, "Oh, where's the research?" And that is something most people haven't been exposed to or experienced. So, what is that like? Is it like going to a psychologist in a spa and you light a candle and sit down and people meet you, or how do you go through this process, and what is it like for the user?
I would say that certainly can happen. There are certainly hypnotherapists that work in a spa type. But for me, I used to maintain an office. I worked in a clinic in Bellevue a long time ago. That's where I got most of my experience. And I opened an office in Phoenix. I ended up closing it down because I was traveling so much that it just didn't make sense to maintain it. Although I may eventually open another office. So if you're working with me, what it's going to look like is we're going to do a consult first. It's going to be over the phone or over Skype or something. And then you're going to decide to move forward. We're going to do the hypnosis right over the phone or over Skype or Facebook Messenger, Zoom, whatever. And yes, you can be hypnotized. The hardest part about working with people online is convincing them that, number one, they can be hypnotized. Everybody can. And that they can be hypnotized over the phone. That's
right.
Which is, I know people, for some reason, people seem to think that maybe they have to, there's some sort of special magic involved. There really isn't. I have no special powers. I'm just using science to get you into a place, and it's based on where your brain waves are at. So how quickly the electrical activity is going, and so as the electrical activity slows down and you start to feel relaxed, your unconscious mind, that deep part of you that actually controls all of your behaviors, your thought patterns, that kind of thing, it becomes more open to suggestion. And that's all I do is I just give suggestions in the hypnosis, things like you may find it easier to stop smoking, or you're finding that it's easier to exercise regularly. And, people, I have people, for some people, it works so quickly that in fact, I just worked with a woman, had really bad PTSD, and she was afraid of the police because of an experience way back when she was a kid, like just a child. She had been put in a police car. She wasn't under arrest or anything, but ever since then, every time she sees a police officer, she cries. We did one session, and the next day, she texted me and said, I just passed 2 police officers on my way to work, and I didn't even respond at all. And it's like, wow, that is, you never know how quickly.
Fast.
Yeah, some people it takes, even with one of the things with people sometimes with hypnosis, they think it's going to be instantaneous, and for some people it is like that, and some people it just takes longer, maybe 3 to 6 sessions, but still way quicker than your traditional psychotherapy. There's still a place for psychotherapy, but for some of these things, you can get through it much faster with hypnosis. Did I answer your question, Andy? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think just giving people an idea of what the process is like, and then who's it good for? You mentioned, weight loss or like this person who kind of had a PTSD reaction to something from childhood. Who might benefit from hypnotherapy?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a tough question to answer, only because there's like a list going around somewhat that's popular in the hypnosis community that lists about 146 different things that hypnosis has been shown through research to help with, and that's everything from hot flashes to weight loss, quitting smoking, more motivation, all those things. The problem with that, though, is if you tell people it helps with darn near everything, it seems like a panacea. And so it's like, probably doesn't work because they claim it cures everything. But here's the thing. Hypnosis, once you can communicate with the unconscious mind is where all of our behaviors are controlled. We don't, most, 99%, most of our behaviors are ingrained. And so once we can talk to that, we can change virtually any behavior, any kind of thought pattern. So I mean, really can't. It's just, I mean, there's just, nail biting everything. My main focus is I've been getting a lot of smokers for some reason. So that's definitely a big one. It helps with smoking. It's one of the most effective tools for quitting smoking. I also work with weight loss because I personally lost 70 pounds with hypnosis. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing that I think my main focus, like now and forward, is working with entrepreneurs who are having trouble with that fearless marketing, afraid to market themselves, or kind of even afraid to get out there and start doing it. I just taught a class not that long ago at the convention about, launch your hypnosis career now, because there's a lot of people that want to, be a hypnotherapist or a stage hypnotist and stuff, but they're still afraid to jump out there and start doing it, or, speakers, everyone, all these, being an actor. I mean, there's so many things like that. So I'm passionate about helping people to do whatever it is that they want to do.
I think it's interesting when you talk about fearless marketing and how much fear holds people back. And that's something that you mentioned early on was huge for you, just in every aspect, like not even be able to talk to a girl until you're 23 or 24.
Yeah. And even then it was tough.
I mean,
and the thing is, like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you've really conquered that. And like, kind of like you mentioned earlier about, overcompensating. It's like, but you kind of have to in order to stay ahead of what your natural inclinations are.
I believe that totally. And, it's funny because when sometimes when I teach this workshop on, the fearless marketing, somebody will say, yeah, but if there's like a saying or something like the lion doesn't need to roar or something, or the biggest dog doesn't need to bark or something. But you know what? Here's the thing. In marketing, that's BS. If nobody knows who you are, then you're not going to do any business. So
right.
So you have to be out there. You've got to be shouting. And if you don't feel confident in your abilities to help people, then go get those abilities. For most people, though, you're going to get the confidence and more abilities the more you do it. A lot of people keep thinking they got to take another class. They got to know their training, especially in the hypnosis field. The thing is, once you get the basics down, you just have to start practice. You have to get into practice, because that's where you really get better. It's like in stand-up. You can take a class, you can write some jokes, but until you actually do it, you're never going to progress.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, you have to trip on a few rocks. You have to the way those lessons get ingrained, is just by experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and not being afraid to fail. That's the other thing, too, is like I used to be held back a lot of times by, well, am I doing the right marketing strategy, or am I doing the right way of doing emails and stuff like that? And finally I just decided, you know what, it's okay to screw up. That's part of the learning process. Just go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I recorded a video and then scrapped it or threw it away before I finally said, at some point you have to hit the post button and just go with what you have. Yeah, that first video, I think it took me forever to actually just hit post, because I kept redoing it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. And now I look back at some of my videos and I go, oh, God, it's terrible. But you know what? I posted it anyway, because at some point you just have to get it out there. You can't keep wondering, is it going to be okay? And I had such a problem, man. I was posting stuff at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want anybody to see it, but I knew I needed to post it for SEO. So.
Right. Well, I remember just a couple months ago, you posted, I think, your first video, and it's fun then to see the difference of how far you've come and your presence.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got just a few seconds left. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with today?
My big thing is, whatever you want to do, whether you want to be a clerk at 7-Eleven or you want to be a TED speaker, whatever it is, just do it. Just get out there and start doing it. Get the confidence, or don't even wait for the confidence. Just do it. You'll get the confidence later. And Andy, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I love watching your journey.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Jim. Yeah, and likewise to you too. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and I definitely love watching everything you put out there. So thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to share and like and pass this on to all your friends so they can gain that confidence they need to do what they want to do in life. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.